And I noticed that Rocco Becht was the 61st rated quarterback in his class. And I thought, my goodness, because, the top 5 hit, bam, bam, bam. And then after that, it just kind of dissipates pretty quickly. And then, you get
There's old
outside the
Rocco
top
sitting
20,
back
20
there.
or 5,
Yeah.
and, it's a wasteland. And it was Fernando Mendoza was ranked similarly, who's obviously hit pretty well at Cal and now Indiana, and it was Rocco. So you got him back this year, and the 2 stud wide receivers, of course, get plucked up by the Houston Texans. That's kind of unusual that 2 wide receivers go in the same draft to the same team from the same team.
And to a team that already has one receiver from that school.
Yes.
Yeah, so the Texans currently have Xavier Hutchinson and Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel.
Yes,
so
that's
there's
right.
there's a lot of Texans, 49ers, and Jets fans in cycling football right now.
Yeah, so my question about Rocco Becht is just, is there any expected continued progression? Do you think he's maxed out, or are there obvious chinks in his armor that can be cleaned up?
So the interesting thing with Rocco Becht is when they were recruiting him out of high school, you can watch his high school film, you can watch how he plays now, and you can immediately see who the blueprint was for when they were recruiting this guy, because you can tell as soon as they turned on his high school film, they're like, that's Brock Purdy. That you can watch him and look at that. Now Rocco is a little bit more of a powerful runner than Brock was, where Brock was more finesse, but just as kind of what they do, their games do resemble each other a lot. But what we've seen so far out of Rocco, I mean, he started as a redshirt freshman. Amazingly, Rocco is just a redshirt junior this year. Even though he feels like he's been around forever. His freshman season, he wasn't asked to do a ton, but he was efficient. I think he threw like 67, 68%, somewhere in there. Was efficient, did his job. Last year, we saw a regression in terms of really just raw passing efficiency. I think he's dropped down like 59% completions. He threw some more interceptions. Unfortunately, a lot of those interceptions ended up being pick sixes. But we did also see him really evolve his running game, his ability not just to scramble out, but actually just being as a design runner out of read options and things like that. So we saw a nice little thing. We also saw that Rocco's got the gamer gene. Rocco's, fourth quarter Rocco is about as good a quarterback as you can ask for in college football. Unfortunately, last year the first 3 quarters were a little bit chaotic at times, but when you came down to the fourth quarter and you were trying to put together a game-winning drive, Rocco's the guy you wanted out there, and he proved it a few different times last year. UCF led that last-minute one down there. Iowa, gosh, that throw to Jalen Noel on the sideline against Iowa was unbelievable. He made tons of games where maybe he made the game more difficult earlier in the game because he threw a bad pick six or whatever it was, like UCF, where he threw 2 pick sixes. But then he also would win the game with heroics late in the game. So the natural progression is make it so you don't have to do the game-winning drives later on. We've already seen that he can be an efficient, accurate quarterback. We saw that his freshman year. So, I think his regression in that category this past season was kind of the classic sophomore slump. People have tape on you. They've got a little more film. They're trying to get things in order. You lose Ben Bramer earlier in the season, the tight end. So you lose one of your bigger targets, and they're trying to find that. They're trying to get the running back position kind of going into this season. I expect his completion percentage to get back up like over 65. Iowa State's offense is built to have pretty high completion percentages, not necessarily just because it's like all dink and dunk behind the line of scrimmage like you saw with like Shadur Sanders at Colorado. But you see Brock Purdy threw over 70% a couple times. It's an offense that absolutely can be efficient, and Rocco's, his raw, arm talent, I guess, is above average and absolutely can be an asset there. So it's really mainly just cutting down on some of the silly mistakes. He doesn't actually turn the ball over a lot, but just last year they were kind of catastrophic mistakes. So it's, when you're throwing an out route to the wide side of the field, a 6-yard out route to the wide side of the field, it's making sure that you're getting it out further and not accidentally underthrowing it where guys can just pick it off and take it to the house. It's those types of things where you expect to see from the underclassmen to the upperclassmen, and just making smarter throws that, on those types of routes. If you're going to miss high and wide, not low and short, that type of thing. But, if he can continue to be an effective runner and continue to be a great on the field leader vocally and just in his play, I think we'll see Rocco be absolutely in the consideration for like best quarterback in the conference and things like that. He can be an all Big 12 guy for sure.